Billy Hogan, thanks for so much for talking to us. Some rather auspicious surroundings, nice and pleasant out in the, well, not quite the sunshine, but certainly the good weather.
No, the weather's okay. The weather's okay.
This is the reason why you was behind dragging Liverpool over to the States, just so you can get put back closer to home, but also get away from the rain a little bit as well.
Well, it's we haven't had much of a summer in the UK. I would agree with that. No, look, coming on tour, number one, is an important part of what we do at the club, and it's something that we work very hard on. Lots of people across the club are involved in the preparations that start about a year out, actually. So this would have all started last summer. And having spent the previous 2 years in Asia, and then obviously we weren't on tour for 2 years because of COVID. So it felt like the right time to come back. 2019 was the last time we were here, and then then we start to look at what are the different markets that we might go to, and one of the important things that we were looking at this year was making it logistically and operationally a bit more efficient, and so having cities that were a bit closer together, cutting down the travel in between those cities, and making it easier for the team, and then some of the facilities that we're in, which obviously the first team isn't here, but the three stadiums that we're playing in and the training centers that we're at are all world class. So
I think it's interesting that you mention that, because it does feel at times like it can be quite a grueling ordeal almost, because obviously you've got to balance the commercial aspects with the physical fitness and the training aspects. Obviously the manager this time around wouldn't have been involved in the processes. True. But is that something that you've almost had to take in anticipation of what the manager's needs were going to be?
Yeah, I mean, when we started this process, we started it with Jurgen and Pep, and obviously that was well before Jurgen had made any decision about whether he was going to be on this tour or not. So it was very much made with it wasn't something that from sort of the business side of the club we just went off and planned it on our own. It's something that we do in hand in glove with the football side, and so in that case, yes, it's Arne sort of inherited the plan, but I think it was made with the input from Jurgen and Pep and the football side, and obviously going forward, we'll now sit down with him and his team and Richard to look at what it looks like going forward.
Just speaking briefly then about, obviously mentioned Jurgen, the previous era for yourself, you were there, throughout. It's an unprecedented, almost, particularly the Premier League era, spell of success for the football club. Yep. You must look back on that really sort of fondly, really, that time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, number one, this is why we do this, is to compete, to win trophies, and I think from everyone at the club's perspective, obviously Jurgen departing was a sort of seismic decision, clearly his personal decision and the right decision for him and his family, and so by extension the right decision for the football club. And so what I think he did, he was very clear about wanting to leave the club in a better place than when he found it, and I think he's done that. And the time that he had given us by making the decision when he did and the announcement when he did gave us the opportunity to go through a proper process. And obviously Michael Edwards coming back, and then Richard and Arne joining has created a new opportunity and a new football structure and a new era going forward.
Well, just on that football structure, it feels like sort of great reboot almost for FSG and for Liverpool as well. I'm a huge sort of, I love the story of John Henry coming in to the Red Sox and obviously bringing in Bill James and what have you around that time. Liverpool have felt like they've been trying always to do their own sort of version of that, and this feels almost like maybe the purest version of that vision almost we've seen so far. I mean, it's very early, but it does always feels like Liverpool want to have the smartest men in the room, on any given sort of level of the conversation, from the business aspects all the way down to the guys on the training ground. So was that a clear vision there in bringing Michael Edwards back, and obviously with your role at the football club as well? Yeah,
I mean, ultimately it did provide an opportunity for a reboot or a reset, and maybe to look at how things might operate going forward. I think it's important to mention, obviously, Mike Gordon is the president of FSG and one of our owners, and really, I would say, sort of the the active and managing owner really of the football club, somebody that I talk to quite a bit, and now Michael will be working very closely with. And Mike's relationship with Jurgen was a very strong one, and they communicated very closely. And so I think there was an opportunity for Mike to maybe take a step back, and for Michael to fill that role in terms of making decisions on the football side. And yeah, incredibly excited to have him back. Obviously, a tremendous era of success that he was a part of creating, and now to have Arne and Richard in, which brings new energy and a new vision, and really excited about the early days.
I mean, I guess it's forever the challenge, with how Liverpool are set up and funded. I guess is that you've got to try and find new ways to stay ahead of the curve, and in bringing obviously Michael Edwards back, who's had that sort of break. He's been able to expand his knowledge base as well, plus bringing in some new guys to the table, and that's I guess this is what these coming years is about. It's yes, Liverpool have had that great spell. Jurgen was a one-of-a-kind person, character, and everything that goes with him. But Liverpool have kind of get to the business now of maintaining their place at the top table. Really,
this is an incredibly competitive league, the strongest league in the world, and it's something that we obviously are. We feel incumbent the responsibility to continue to try and compete to win the league, ultimately to win trophies, and that I think with Michael's leadership and the new football structure, that's something that we're really excited about, and maintaining, as you said, continuing that trajectory, and that's something that whenever you're making decisions about leadership and about what we're trying to do with regard to the football club, it's always about trying to drive forward and always about success.
I want to talk about PSR, but you wanted to mention something with the FSG structure and what have you. If you don't.
Yeah, sure. No, you go ahead. I'll just jump in when you're done.
Okay, cool. So I want to talk about PSR, if you don't mind, because obviously it looks like I remember hearing initially when FSG bought the club, or Nesby bought the club, that they wanted. There were so many promises around the sort of structure in FFP, and promising to have teeth around this. It feels like Liverpool have managed to be compliant when a lot, and almost like stringently compliant a lot of the times over the years, and a lot of questions have been raised about that from people who don't understand what the methodology is. Why aren't Liverpool doing things in ways that other football clubs aren't? It looks like PSR has teeth. Does that feel like a vindication for what you guys have been doing for so many years now?
Well, I think if you go back to 2010 when as you said, Nesby, FSG came in to acquire the club. That was something that John Henry at the time said that we were supportive of financial fair play and the rules that were in place at the time, and obviously those rules continue to evolve. We're going through a bit of a sort of reboot as it relates to the rules currently, from PSRs to the squad cost rules, which sort of mirror what UEFA has put in place. But I would say that from our standpoint, and look, we wouldn't comment on how any other club is operated or run, but I would say from our standpoint, we've always felt that the goal at the end of the day is for the club to be sustainable, and that puts pressure on people like myself and the team sort of off the pitch to try and run the club as well as we possibly can to generate revenue and to control our costs and to then put that into the football club. And that's something that FSG has done since we've owned the club in 2010, and continually reinvested into the squad and invested into the infrastructure. And you look at Anfield, and you look at the training ground, and you look at the women's training ground, and you look at all of the infrastructure around the club has been improved over the course of the last 14 years, and that's something that's incredibly important as well. So there are financial regulations in place, and that's something that we have always maintained and frankly followed those rules. And I think it is important that the rules have teeth, and I think if clubs are going to fall afoul of that, then the Premier League has a process that they go through, and we've seen that over the course of the last year or so. And I think that there's been a lot of conversation, as I said, about the new rules coming in. And so that'll be a bit of a change, but again, we're supportive of those rules and supportive of running the club sustainably. That's really our goal.
I'm sorry, could I jump in? Could I just ask, how much do you feel the clubs are together on a lot of these regulations? We've seen a lot of votes coming in now, and there's clubs with different opinions and things like that. How positive are the conversations at that level? Yeah,
I think generally speaking, they're positive. I mean, look, every club is going to have their own unique perspective, and so we have our perspective, and when we go into a shareholders meeting, we've obviously done a lot of work in advance, and we know kind of where we stand on it. And sometimes there's wide agreement, and other times there aren't, and that ultimately that happens in shareholders meetings. But I think generally speaking, the conversations that we've had, even in the run-ups to a lot of the shareholders meetings, are all positive, and ultimately clubs trying to find the best ways for all of us to operate going forward. And that's at the end of the day, that's ultimately the goal. And as I said before, we have the most competitive and biggest league in world football, and it's important that we keep it that way. And that's what we're all focused on.
There's no secret that Liverpool are exploring a multi-club model. There was a lot of talks around the Bordeaux situation. How much do you sort of see that as part of the future? And it seems to be something as well that many of the clubs do agree on and are exploring at the minute in the Prem.
Yeah, I think right now, I think there's 13 clubs that have some affiliation relationship with other clubs. I would say one correction is that Liverpool isn't looking at acquiring another club. It's FSG is looking at acquiring another club. And look, that the Bordeaux situation obviously was public, and that was something that ultimately didn't move forward for a number of different reasons. But I think it is something that, as certainly Michael in his role as the CEO of FSG Football is looking at, and when there's something appropriate to say, then we will. But that's a part of his strategy and something that he's really managing at this point.
Do you need that to compete multi-club, because you've got a lot of your rivals at the top of the Premier League, and they're able to move players around and maybe have that talent acquisition in different markets that maybe Liverpool and then FSG can't have right now?
Well, I think we've been able to compete over the course of the last 14 years or so since FSG has been in, and obviously we haven't had a multi-club structure in place. So I think it's something that Michael is focused on, and when and if something happens, then we'll see what the benefits of that are. But in the meantime, our focus, my focus is 100% on Liverpool and on what we're doing to continue to compete in the Premier League.
Do you think that attracted Michael back to the club, the sort of building that that structure at FSG? Yeah,
I think that was. I think even in the announcement, I think that was something that was clear that he had the role that he had when he was at Liverpool previously, and I think this is, as we said earlier, he said a couple of years away and grown in his own right, and so I think this is something that was important to him for sure.
I just wanted to ask, it's obviously a serious situation with Bordeaux, just sort of your personal emotions about that when you saw the news that they might be in a difficult financial position.
Well, look, personally, from my standpoint, you never want to see any football club get into the situation that Bordeaux is in, and I think it goes back to really the philosophy that we operate in, which is to make sure that the club Liverpool is run sustainably. And I think ultimately there are a lot of football clubs that aren't run sustainably, and at the end of the day, what's happened with Bordeaux is really sad, and obviously from my standpoint personally, it's terrible to see. So
I just wanted to jump in as well. The structure with the new manager and the change in structure. Is it sort of going back to what was done before, or does it feel quite new? And how long do you think it will take to bed in to sort of be efficient with all the new guys in and new management as well?
I think it's different in the sense, obviously different people. Michael and Julian, who were here previously, but those two are in FSG roles as opposed to in specific Liverpool roles. So it's definitely different from that standpoint. But I think it's also at the end of the day, the decisions that are made from a football operations standpoint are never made by one person. And ownership will be involved in those discussions. Obviously, Michael, Richard, Arne, they will be making the decisions in terms of how and what we need to do from a football and a football operations standpoint. So it's different in the sense that it's a different structure, but it's not different in the philosophy in terms of how we're operating.
And last one from me, we're here in Philadelphia, it's amazing, you're doing the foundation work, you've got a huge match coming up, you're trying to balance the football side as well. How do you balance all that? And I want a word as well on the environmental impact as well, and that sort of side of things as well.
So I think from how we look to balance it, at the end of the day, this is preseason is the important part of the definition in terms of getting the team into shape. And from a football perspective, that's something that we've looked at in terms of the facilities that we're using, the venues that we're training in, the venues that we're playing in, and all of them are world class. So it's important that the team has the ability to continue to build their fitness and get ready for the season. At the same time, as you said, we're here at this foundation event. We've got a group of people sort of that don't necessarily kick a ball for a living, that are working behind the scenes to engage with our supporters, and that's really the focus of these tours, is the opportunity for us to bring the club out to markets that are important to the club, that are important to our supporters, and many of whom will never get the opportunity to come to Anfield, to come to Liverpool, and so it's our chance to do that. In terms of the overall sort of environmental impact, that's something that we take very seriously. We have a program. In fact, we publish a report every year called The Red Way, which is on our website. And everything that we do, even just looking at it from a travel standpoint, is offset. So we feel it's really important. Sustainably run clubs is not just about the financial side. We think it's important to run the club sustainably across all different elements, and we think about that in terms of our people and the planet and the community is all a part of that Red Way project, and that's something that is, if you were behind the scenes in the football club, everybody is bought into the Red Way and how we operate in a sustainable way.
Just sort of lastly, really, obviously you've seen the success at Liverpool Football Club while you've been there. We've mentioned it already. From a commercial perspective, the biggest challenge, it seems, we see it from Redmen as a microcosm of what happens with Liverpool, is that when things are successful, it feels like obviously everything is great when the sun is shining, easier to make hay. Is that almost the biggest challenge of making sure that Liverpool can continue to grow, to be able to compete, even when things aren't, but also managing to maintain it such that the success of the football club is actually paramount, that is the driving force behind everything that Liverpool does? Yeah,
success on the pitch is the ultimate and end-all goal of what we're trying to do. We want to compete and win trophies. That's why we do this every day. Doesn't matter if you're on the football side or the business side of the club. If you work for the club, you want the club to be successful, and we want to win trophies. So that's a huge part of our focus. And I think the way that we've always looked at that is how the sort of two sides, if you will, of the club, the business and the football side, can work together to help us achieve that goal. And that is, again, that's kind of incumbent upon my team, and the people I'm fortunate enough to work with every day, to drive the sort of the business side of the club that then helps to feed the football side, and vice versa. So, of course, success is paramount. It's important to us, and it's important to our supporters, and it's important to us then on the business side to make sure that we're opening up every opportunity to engage with our supporters on a global basis, and that's ultimately part of why we do these tours. And so, you're excited for the new era? Very excited. Yeah, very excited. Look, there's great energy around the team, and change is sometimes challenging, but it presents great opportunity, and I'm really excited about the future. And we all get to see Jurgen Klopp smiling, pressure-free, looking 10 years younger already. He looks like he's enjoying himself. And he should. He's earned it. So we obviously wish him nothing but the best. Amazing, Billy. Thank you so much. Thanks. You got it. Much appreciated.